Darin Mitchell. I'm in marriage and family therapy. I would say that my approach is a hybrid between Virginia Satir's human growth model and the solution-based model. Now, that might seem like a contradiction at first, because if you understand how the counseling models work, Virginia Satir really believed that our basic behaviors stem from yearnings. She looked at it like an iceberg, and what you saw, the behaviors that were above the water, if you want to use that term, came from the yearnings that were down deep. Her desire was to drill down as deep into that iceberg as she could until she figured out why it was what you were doing. That seems a direct opposite approach to a solution-focused model, which simply looks at behavior and its primary desire is to do nothing but change your behavior. And so many would say that a solution-focused counselor isn't really looking to drill down inside of a person to see what's gone on in the present or even the past, but instead they simply look to the future. At the same time, I'm a realist. And even though it's a contradiction, I don't know if it has to be quite the contradiction that someone might think, because I realize not everyone has time. One of the drawbacks to Virginia Satir's human growth model is that it takes a long time. Sometimes people don't even know what it is that they're after or why they're doing what they're doing. And it takes some time to actually uncover that. And I think that by trying to at least incorporate some of the solution-focused model, it can help someone who doesn't have deep-seated issues to really be able to deal with something. And that's really the second part that I think I look at when I think about this model, and that is that not everyone has severe baggage. Not everyone has to have a diagnosis. Not every time a client walks into your office does it mean that you have to fully take them apart to put them back together again. Sometimes they might be normal people with maybe just a simple solution to a simple problem that they just can't quite see. Most of the time, I think it's a little of both. Well, it's a hybrid. It's not a forced situation where you have to do one or the other, but instead it takes two broad strokes of a brush and allows you to decide with each client where they're actually going to be on that timeline. And I think probably within the first 30 minutes of the first session, you're going to realize, at least to some degree, which of the two approaches you're probably going to come at from a greater, to a greater degree. The ability for it to be short, and solution therapy is short, but it doesn't always have to be short in what I'm looking at. If someone comes in and it seems like they have a simple problem, but it goes a lot deeper than we first thought, solution-focused therapy would probably struggle or maybe even refer out, where I would have no problem continuing to deal with them. At the same time, Virginia Satir's model seems to say that if it's simple, then it probably you haven't gone deep enough. And I think it can also be that. Unlike also some other models, I don't really want to focus on emotions. A lot of the different models try to get people to process very complex emotions and to get those emotions out in the open. And I understand there may be some point to that and there may be a reason to do that, but I don't know if it's always the right answer any more than poking someone's knee when it hurts really helps you to understand why it's hurting. I think sometimes finding a solution can help solve that problem even if someone doesn't know what the problem is. Instead, if I could sort of give an overarching understanding of what I'm trying to say, it's this: I want people to really understand what the problem is. I think understanding is just as important as processing. It's just as important as joining. It's just as important as anything. It's lighting the elephant in the room. It's putting a light on that elephant. So when the people walk out of the office, they fully understand, this is what's bothering me. And I think just simply being able to understand what the issue is can help people not only find closure, but help them find the steps to get to closure. Well, really, I fell into this. As an Army chaplain, I probably have several thousand counselings under my belt, most of them just trial by fire. But I really learned two things when it came to counseling. And the first one you're probably going to say, oh, of course. And the second one may surprise you. And that is that I realized when I counsel with people, number one, that people lied to me when we counseled. Now, again, you might think to yourself that of course someone is going to lie to you in their counseling because people don't want to tell you the truth. But that's really what drew me to my second fact, and this is the one that I struggled with for a while to at least understand, and that is people do not know they're lying to me when they lie to me. And what I sort of came to realize was that these behaviors that people need help with, that oftentimes those yearnings that Virginia Satir would talk about, that we build shells around those, to the point that we don't even acknowledge that we're hurting. We know that we're hurting, but we can't put a finger on it because we're simply too afraid. And so I realized that going into the yearning part of person, the fact that everyone has needs, and that's really all we're trying to do. And it doesn't matter where you're at in the world. It doesn't matter if you're in Africa, if you're in the United States, if you're rich or poor, if you're a man, if you're a woman, we're trying to meet our needs. And we will do anything we possibly can to meet those needs, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. And oftentimes the behavior, and that's where we get that behavioral approach, comes from simply the wrong application of trying to meet those deep needs. That's where we get the human growth model. I had a family come in. Of course, I won't use any names and won't even tell you which of the two of the people in this case were the man or the woman, but there had been some infidelity in a marriage. What really surprised me is that one of the two of those that were married was very stoic. They just simply almost had no emotion, and so much so that it really became difficult to even talk or deal with these individuals, or at least this one individual. So I had to go into that sort of that human growth model and find out what's happened. That she's or he has built such a shell around themselves that they can't even talk, and they can talk about things that are just extremely difficult and it not even bother them at all. And so we were able to go back into the past and into some of the things that had happened to this individual when they were younger, and what had actually been happening lately. And it really, you came to realize why that person would put that kind of a wall up between them and the emotions that they had. They didn't understand those emotions. They didn't even know really what was going on, and they definitely couldn't solve it. Well, once we really figured out what the issue was, then we were able then, and we go into a solution type, because again, after so many sessions, you just don't have that much time, but we were able to give them some baby steps, this individual, to really learn how to start displaying emotion. And from the time that they came to that aha realization moment, to starting to take those baby steps, it wasn't long until we started seeing a remarked change in that individual, again, using both approaches. Well, of course, solution focused primarily deals with listening. You don't do a lot of different kind of exercises. You don't really bring in props. It's mostly speaking, listening. But really it comes down to two. Number one is the asking of the question. By asking questions and leading questions, you try to get people to open up, maybe not directly, but even indirectly, which deals with, again, with the second portion, which is listening. So speaking and listening, asking questions and listening intently to try to realize really what down deep inside this person, what need are they trying to meet? And by understanding what need it is that you have to meet, at that point you can start teaching. And I think teaching is important in counseling in the sense that people don't often know why they feel like they do. So being able to teach that these meeting of needs are normal can really go a long way. And then finally, not just the questions and the teaching, but again, uncovering those needs by listening very closely to what the client's saying, trying to figure out what it is they're saying. It's a systematic, and systematic means that it can be done with all people. It's a systematic revealing of a person's need, finding out how they're trying to fulfill that need, and helping them to meet it.